Culture can be defined in several ways. High culture includes the arts, literature, music, and architecture of a people or place. Culture in anthropological terms encompasses the values, beliefs, attitudes, customs, and communication styles that underlie high culture. Meet 4 Carleton College students with intercultural experience. Maria Coriel Martin, a student from Seattle, Washington, who has studied abroad. Kalia Yang, a first-generation Hmong American student from St. Paul, Minnesota. Nathan O'Connick, a third culture kid who has lived in the United States, the Czech Republic, and Taiwan. Sujan Rajbandari, an international student from Kathmandu, Nepal. How do they describe their cultural identity?
It's hard for me to define myself. I feel like I'm just a mixed up person from all these different backgrounds, and sometimes I call myself a mutt of Europe. Coming as an American to Mali and Australia, New Zealand, areas in the South Pacific, I became more aware of my own background as an American and values in our society, such as family.
Sometimes I say that I'm from St. Paul, and then they go, you are? I mean, where are you from? And then I say, oh, I was born in Thailand. And then they go, are you Thai? And then I say, no, I'm not Thai. I'm Hmong. So it's kind of complicated.
I look like a Caucasian, regular American guy, you know, and even though I was born in Minnesota, having lived in different countries for about 8 years, I had different experiences and different perspectives than a lot of my peers. If people asked me where I was from and I said Taiwan, that would be an initial shock. And so if I said, no, I'm from Minnesota, they would realize very, very quickly that I am not as Minnesotan as everybody else around, and that I am an imposter, and on some level not quite as American as other people here. At the same time, I'm obviously not Chinese or Taiwanese.
Cultural identity is a dynamic process. People may develop multiple cultural identities through intercultural encounters.
When I say, this is what happens in Nepal, this is what we do, and every time I say that, the answer changes because I realize that there's more to it.
I think the way I'm sitting right now is very American. I think the flannel shirt, it's very Minnesotan. I don't think a lot of Hmong girls in Laos or Thailand would be wearing a flannel shirt and blue jeans. If I were more Hmong, I would be more careful about what I say and how I craft what I say, because that's very important in being Hmong. But in America, you just say what comes to your mind.
Language reflects cultural identity. Language is both a cultural window and a bridge. It engages others and spans cultural differences.
You know, I speak Hmong at home and I feel like I'm a different person when I speak Hmong. And I speak English here and I feel like I'm a different person when I speak English. But through English, I can tell you about what it is like for me to be Hmong, and I can communicate, not everything, but a lot of the things that I feel inside. I think if it all comes down to one thing, and I had to say what is the most important thing in understanding culture or crossing cultures, I would say it is language.
I think that language is one of the most important things to any culture, and as a visitor, having taken the time to learn someone's language shows an interest on my part.
Intercultural transitions occur between home and college, a small town and a large city, and between your birthplace and another country. When you're moving between cultures, you experience intercultural transitions.
Like when I think about transitions, I see so many ahead of me. You know, I know how it feels to know that you're in a new place. When you're there, that getting to that point is always so different depending on where you are and where you're going to be.
Moving between cultures can be challenging and may cause culture shock. Culture shock can range from the mild surprise at superficial differences, to the stress of living and studying in another language, to the challenge of understanding profoundly different cultural values. Intercultural adjustment, sometimes illustrated as a U or W curve, is a gradual process with emotional and cognitive peaks and valleys that are both predictable and highly personal.
When I first came here, and after I got over my jet lag and as I started to see things around, I felt that something was very wrong. There were so many things that were going opposite. And even small things like the side of the road people drive, like the orientation of the light switch. I just could not eat anything here. My first year here, I lost 13 kilos. The food was so bad for me because it was so different. It was very bland, and there was the taste of home was lacking for me.
You come to a new place, you've got a new environment with totally different stimuli, totally different people, and it's all really novel and exciting and wonderful. And then after 3 or 4 months, the novelties start to wear off and things, the differences kind of start to grate on your nerves a little bit, and you really start to idealize the place you've left behind and imagine how wonderful it was in every possible way and really start to miss it and start to compare it negatively to your immediate surroundings.
I came back with some knowledge of cooking so that I could cook for myself sometimes, and my friends too. So in that way, it became more bearable. I was more used to it. I even started to like some of the dishes, some food.
But I found at Carleton that having a group of students who had experienced the same thing and could understand some of what I was going through really helped. We could get together, and even though there were a few inches of snow on the ground still, we could play Malian music or talk about our experiences and share the photos.
How you adjust to intercultural transitions depends on your own expectations and experiences. Strategies for coping with intercultural transitions may include keeping a journal, staying in touch with friends and family at home, socializing with home country peers, or deliberately reaching out.
Managing transitions between different cultures can be difficult, and I think the first and foremost thing that I tried to remember was to take care of myself, and that meant getting enough sleep, trying to eat well, and moving about and getting exercise.
Some of the most useful coping mechanisms, if you will, are it's just to be outgoing. It's so easy when you're faced with a new a new environment and everything's foreign and frightening, to just kind of keep to yourself and build this imaginary world in your head where everything was perfect in the past and in your former home. But as long as you're willing to meet people and make friends, constantly meeting people, hearing about their experiences, sharing your experiences with them.
As I move in and out of different cultures, I find that art helps me process my experiences around me and also forms a basis of a dialogue with people. This I experienced from Mali to Australia to New Zealand, especially in Mali. If I was sitting down sketching the Niger River with boats on it, a crowd of people could gather around and I would sit and discuss what I was doing as I was working. And so as I was working and observing, I was also learning about them and they were learning about me. So there's an exchange and a dialogue.
As I talked to people here and they wanted to know, some of them wanted to know more about the country or more about the culture, I found myself talking about it more. I discovered that I am quite a chatty person.
Re-entry adjustment and stress, often referred to as reverse culture shock, might come as a surprise when you return home.
After returning to Seattle back home, after being in a society where people talk to each other so much, I felt really isolated because walking down the street, I wanted to look up and look people in the eye and say hello, and people would lower their eyes and be walking down the street, and it wasn't as welcoming. It was very cold. All the streets were gray. I missed the dust and the heat of Mali.
I took this class in cross-cultural studies entitled I'm a Stranger Here Myself. And one of the things that we did in that class was, amongst various other things, was talk about the idea of home and what home really means to me. It was very difficult for me in that class because suddenly there was this pressure, almost a pressure for me to put down in words what I thought of as home or what home really meant to me. And the more I thought about it, the more confused I was, the more confused I got. And it was a very painful experience.
Coping with intercultural transitions takes time and benefits from reflection.
When I first left Mali 3 months ago, I found that I'd absorbed so much information that I just needed to sit and let it filter through my head and find the parts of it that were important and take some time to examine it. I got some of that time in Seattle before coming back to Carleton. And I think finally, after 2 months at Carleton, it's starting to sink in, and I'm having a stronger realization of the things that I want to do.
It is a good idea to keep sort of an open mind to try to learn more things. But at the same time, it is also important to reflect on some of those things that I have learned.
Intercultural transitions, like other changes in life, happen repeatedly. Whether you are moving between home and college, or to another country and culture, you will discover that intercultural transitions are dynamic and challenging, but always interesting.
I don't see an end, if there's ever an end to like cross-cultural or intercultural transitioning period. And I don't know, but I think I'm the kind of person who follows them, who chases after them. Now that I kind of realize how much growth there is in the process of getting to that place, I would love to just experience it again and again and again. Like you say, it doesn't get easier, but it gets almost better every time.
There are certain cycles I know in myself, emotional cycles, where I'll have that novelty stage, and then I'll hit a low, and then I'll hit a stage where I'm kind of adapting and making friends, and things kind of slowly begin to get better. And then before long, you find yourself just on the regular roller coaster of life.